Well, it seems like Tweedledee and Tweedledum have done it once again. Hello everyone, welcome once again to another video, and this time, once again, we have information on the Rings of Power. This time it comes to us thanks to San Diego Comic-Con. In case that you didn't know, and if you were aware, well, a little recap on that. San Diego Comic-Con had some panels with the Rings of Power, the casts, and the showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, aka Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the two idiots that are behind the Rings of Power for Amazon. And that was hosted by none other than Stephen Colbert, who also has lost it. He lost it after 2016. I hope that you all know why. But the situation here is that even though he knows Tolkien, I reckon that he would stop at nothing in trying to bring the leftist ideology to life and to continue further in that, because he is that unhinged right now. And one of the things that this panel had was that it was a Q&A. In this Q&A, both Tweedledee and Tweedledum have let through that they are not really that familiar with Tolkien, and if they are, then they really don't care, especially concerning one of the questions that I want to draw attention to draw home this point that I'm trying to make. And the question was about why adding hobbits to the events that pertain to the Second Age, according to what Tolkien wrote in his different works that we now call as a whole the Legendarium, when in reality hobbits are from the Third Age and nothing absolutely is known about them or their existence before that time. And what they did and how they responded to it is quite interesting, to say the least. Of course, it is outrageous to any Tolkien fan that respects themselves and try to protect Tolkien's work as much as they can. Suffice it to say that I'm not going to just talk about it, but I'm going to show you a little bit, about 20 seconds of that panel that they had over at San Diego Comic-Con, and just judge, see for yourselves whether it's right that we as fans are outraged, or if we are just making a storm into a glass of water. So, for all of you, I present this video about what they said in their San Diego Comic-Con Q&A panel.
Why is there a Hobbit story in the Second Age, JD?
Because well, it's actually not technically a Hobbit story, it's a Harfoot story. And so Tolkien doesn't say anything about Harfoots not having done anything amazing in the Second Age. He says that hobbits before the Third Age didn't do anything impressive. So we felt we had license there to go ahead and tell a good Harfoot story.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The question was, why include a Hobbit story for the Second Age? Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Tolkien's work, beyond maybe The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, let's just say that the hobbits were not quite a thing during the Second Age. They were there, or they appeared during the Third Age, and nothing is known about them from before they appeared in the world, so to speak. So for that reason, it's uncommon, or it's a little weird for all those Tolkien fans to have a Hobbit story taking place during the Second Age. Now, also for all those of you who are not familiar with Tolkien, the prologue to The Lord of the Rings describes three different hobbit families, let's just say. Tolkien talks about three different sorts of hobbits. One of them is the Harfoots, for example, and the other two are called the Stores and the Fallowhides. But he includes the Harfoots into these hobbit families. So for these two guys, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, to say that this is not a Hobbit story, first and foremost, but a Harfoot story, well, it's just akin to saying something along the lines of, oh no, this is not a human story, this is an Asian story, or something as idiotic as that. It doesn't make any sense. And it's also, in my opinion at least, evidence that if these guys are familiar with Tolkien, they don't care about it. But it tells me that they are really not that familiar with the work of the man, you know? Now, let's just pretend, for the sake of the argument, that they do have a certain knowledge or a vast knowledge on Tolkien and his works. The fact that they blatantly and openly ignore that knowledge just to further this story, it speaks volumes about the sort of people that we have at the helm of this show. And it also tells us that we cannot really expect, first and foremost, any respect for Tolkien's work, but also that we can expect that anything that we see on the screen is going to be a total disaster. And these guys have this attitude of, well, actually, you know, that tells me, this attitude of theirs, that they are not really in the job because they know so much about Tolkien, but because they are yes men, you know. So they have their bosses, the producers, everyone that is behind the rings of power, and they answer to them. And when they say, well, I want this in the show, they are going to be yes, you know. They are not going to pose any opposition, they are not going to make any waves or anything like that. They are just going to say, yeah, of course, we're going to include it. So, considering that Amazon Prime has a certain guidelines and checklists that they need to tick away, I can only assume that all that diversity that they are trying to include in all their projects is ticked off in this case, thanks to these two guys, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, that say yes to everything and don't really pay attention to what the story is about and how to really serve the purposes of said story. Now, if Tweedledee and Tweedledum don't know anything at all about Tolkien and they are just making it all on the fly, then this doesn't look good on those people that went to Oxford with all expenses paid for by Amazon. I'm talking about people like the Tolkien professor, the Nerd of the Rings, of course, and that shill site of destruction that is theonering.net, because they all, or the majority of them at least, said how they were relieved after talking to Tweedledee and Tweedledum. If you remember, many of them claimed that they had their own suspicions, yeah, they had their own misgivings, but after talking to them, all that was dispelled, and they are confident that they are the right people for this show. Well, this San Diego Comic Con panel is telling us that either they are unfit because they choose to ignore something as essential as who are hobbits and who are not, or they are unfit because they have no knowledge at all of Tolkien. Either way, of course, it doesn't look good on their already tarnished reputations. And let's remember that the only reason that these people were invited to Oxford with all their expenses paid for by Amazon was the fact that they were going to somehow convince the fandom, because they were quote-unquote reputable personalities over at inside the fandom, and that their voice, of course, was going to be heard. They were going to be respected, and many opinions would be changed thanks to what they have to say. And all this thanks to the situation, let's call it that, but in reality it was backlash. The situation that took place at the beginning of this year with their super fan videos. If you remember, Amazon had these reactions and commentary from quote-unquote Tolkien fans that presented themselves as pure jokes. They had no information and no knowledge whatsoever on Tolkien. They couldn't care less about Tolkien. Many of them hadn't even read him, or didn't know what it was all about. They were unfamiliar with the source material, or at least what is supposed to be the source material. And they were the joke of the town. And because of that, they tried to somehow assuage that, and at the same time try to earn the fandom's good graces in a sort of damage control with this. The only thing that this has proved to me is that these individuals that went to Oxford are shills for the Amazon show, that they are in league with Amazon and with the OneRing.net and all that to draw some publicity or to become marketing tools for this show, more like. They are there to sell you the show, and if you are one of those fans that is wary about this and thinks, well, maybe I should not pay attention to it, I am wary of it because I really think that it's not the sort of show that will respect Tolkien. Well, they are there jumping in and tell you, no, pay attention to it. It's going to be worth the try. It's going to be worth the attempt at looking at this, And I reckon that for all of us who are fans, this cannot stand, This cannot take place. So if you are one of those fans, again, I suggest that you just ignore completely the Rings of Power as a show come September. Here I will be giving you information about it, but make sure, be aware, be sure that I will not even touch that thing at all. I don't want to watch it. I am not going to watch it. I have no intention in supporting this project at all, because Tweedledee and Tweedledum have once again shown that if they are knowledgeable in Tolkien, they ignore it completely to further their own agenda or Amazon's agenda, more like. And if they don't know anything about Tolkien, then they are proving once again that not only were those people invited to Oxford shills, but Tweedledee and Tweedledum are unfit for this role. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching this video, and see you next time.